Today we have a calm guest to counterbalance my crazy. But before we talk about the bold takes on the season, Paul Finebaum tried to have a bold take. For whatever reason, he's decided to pick a round 3 battle with Mike Gundy, and I'm here for it.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football HC is a brand new mobile game that is completely free. No ads and 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today with Ultimate GM. Meanwhile, we get to start the conversation right off with Paul Finebaum. Yes, the same Paul Finebaum that has started several spats, you could call them, with Mike Gundy. And thus far, he's 0-2 against Mike Gundy when he's deciding to say these crazy things. So, of course, we're going to have some fun with it. If we think back to 2020, Paul Finebaum was saying that Oklahoma State should not only get rid of Mike Gundy, but they should fire him with clause over a T-shirt. Now, regardless of what side of the aisle you land on, it was a T-shirt, ladies and gentlemen. That may be a bold take to start this thing off. It was a T-shirt that he wore to go fishing, because what do you wear to go fishing? Random T-shirts that you don't give a hoot about that were likely given to you by somebody at some point in time. So he was wrong there. Good thing we didn't get I can't speak English today, rid of Mike Gundy back then. He was wrong again in 2023, talking about Mike Gundy and not being able to win Bedlam. He followed that up with saying that Bedlam's not important to anybody outside of the state of Oklahoma. But if you look at the TV viewership for Bedlam, it does matter. And if you look at 2 of the last 3 Bedlam games, Mike Gundy can win those games. So yet again, Paul Finebaum is wrong. Here we are today. Paul Finebaum took it upon himself to be the latest Sooner fangirl by going all Hawk Tuah mode for him. For what? To talk about the fact that Mike Gundy doesn't have a good lay of the landscape, that Mike Gundy isn't somebody that people should come play for. Well, I would like to say this, Mr. Paul Finebaum. We don't want the same players that you seem to be covering. You also mentioned that recruits are going to look at this and it's going to fall on deaf ears because this is not the lay of the land anymore. I completely disagree. Now, you very well may go out and do all of the recruiting business. You may travel from state to state and catch these high school games and the 7-on-7 tournaments and talk to high school coaches. But I kind of feel like you don't, because this is not falling on deaf ears. What this is doing is separating the kids that really, really want to come to Oklahoma State, be a part of the Big 12, be part of the Cowboy culture, as opposed to the kids that want to come for some NIL battle. As we saw with Reggie Grimes, we didn't want to get involved in the NIL battle, and I don't think we're going to do it anytime soon. We are willing to pay players that are willing to stay. Yeah, if you earn it and do the right thing and do the daggone thing on the field, we'll pay you and encourage you to stay. Those are the players that we want at Oklahoma State. So Paul Finebaum may be an apologist for OU. He may be somebody that has to propagate the latest SEC bull honky out there. But Georgia, why don't he talk about the fact that you have to get arrested 33 times nowadays to win a national title at Georgia? Mike Gundy doesn't have that problem. We're thankful for it. That is the rant. I apologize. I had to get it out of the way because I can't stand the fact that Mike Gundy's getting chastised yet again for being open, upfront, and honest. What we want all of our coaches in the country to be. I could be wrong, but the guest that we have today is going to help me come back down to reality, come back down to earth, or he might spice this thing up a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Bleav in OK State podcast, Justin Southwell. How we feeling, brother, man?
Man, feeling great. And with that Finebaum hate, I'm even more energized. I mean, rightfully so. And this guy, he doesn't even take into consideration the fact that Gundy has since apologized for that. He's on the side of his players for that shirt. And man, I mean, like, you're just going to completely ignore that and then have your preconceived notions about him moving forward for the rest of time. And of course, with OU being in the SEC now, Finebaum's going to pump them up. He's going to try to smash OSU down. It's sad. It really is. Just to be somewhat relevant and be a talking point, he has to have these ridiculously controversial takes whenever I don't really believe anybody actually believes what he's saying whenever he comes out and says that stuff against Coach Gundy, against Oklahoma State. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it's a good way, I guess, to get some OU fans on his side. And of course, with the schedule that Texas got, there's not a big need to propagate up Texas, right?
The
But
thing is, Cody, I feel like a lot of the OU fans are actually coming to the defense of OSU in this case. I mean, you look at some of the things that are going on Twitter, and they're like, "Man, really, Paul Finebaum? I mean, I get it. You love the SEC. Now you're starting to gear toward OU. Maybe I shouldn't say every OU fan, but the ones that are maybe a little smarter than some of the other ones. I know the average IQ is a little lower in that fan base, but for the
yeah, numbers aren't typically their strong suit, all right? But
you guys are basically like, that's a stupid take, and I do appreciate the OU fans that'll come out and say that, because that's how ridiculous it is, Cody.
so we do have to shift some bold takes that we're going to kind of bounce back and forth on. But I do have a bold take before we get to the fine folks out here that need to be paying attention to the Ultimate GM game. Bold take. Here's how we're going to start this off. By the end of the year, Justin Southwell will have a QR coded jacket because he loves them so much.
That is a bold take. I will not have one. I won't.
Yeah,
I don't even know how QR codes work. Really, I don't think I can make one or design one, and I certainly don't want to put it on anything that I deem, the purity of the uniform. Right? I've got that as well. I have clothes that I like. I don't want to ruin it with a QR code.
Dude, I'm all in the QR code business, right? I do think you had some reluctancy to some degree, and I think it is warranted. But at the same time, I think this is a very visionary move. And in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but Oklahoma State hasn't always been at the cutting edge of innovative moves, especially in football. So I absolutely love it. I think it's a brilliant idea. The fact that they're going to sprinkle all throughout campuses is brilliant. And you and I both know that even the teams that are giving Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State a hard time for this are also going to end up with QR codes, because it just makes way too much sense, right? It's just whenever you have the celebratory camera for pick sixes and things of that nature, and you got the whole defense coming to the camera anyways, why not let those guys benefit off of it, or the university, right? Because they don't just have to donate to a dude. There's also going to be QR codes where you can give to the university as opposed to just giving to one individual player. So I love it, dude. And I'm typically one of those get off my lawn guys. I'm surprised I'm not getting off my lawn on this one right here.
My initial thought was that I hated it. And the more I hear about it, the more I'm warming up to it. I just don't see the application with it being on the back of a helmet. That part doesn't make sense to me. Maybe for marketing purposes and getting the information out there that this is what we will be doing in the stadium. We're going to have QR codes all around, but to legitimately have it on the helmet, it just doesn't look good. I don't like that. I want my uniforms to be pure, no ad patches, no QR codes. You leave that stuff off the uniform and perhaps in other places around the stadium, I can get on board with that. But at the same time, I can see that that's what everybody's talking about, right? It's not just that we're doing the QR codes. It's the fact that they have it on the helmet, and that has become the talking point nationally at this point. So it makes sense.
Oh, no. I completely get it. I don't disagree on the standpoint of I would prefer our uniforms to look clean. Like, I refuse to buy a Thunder jersey because that stupid Love's yellow logo that makes no sense, all right? And it's a complete eyesore on the uniform. So I'm with you. But the QR code back of the helmet, I don't know. I thought it was a pretty smooth look, right? It would be different if we start putting it all over the jerseys. Yeah, but you know what? We're not soccer quite yet. And we should all be thankful for that fact. And it's football season, and we're football people. And now we have a football game for you to jump in on. It is a lot of fun, especially whenever you have a game that you can play off the line, right? Because sometimes you're going through vacation spots where you lose signal and you still want to play a little bit of a game. Ultimate GM has you covered. Listen, Locked On Oklahoma State family, we want to give you a heads up with this brand new mobile game that you're going to love. It's amazing, and the simulation is something that you can keep getting into and building your rosters and building your programs as a coach. It's kind of like a road to glory scenario where you get to be in control. One of the things that you are really going to love about the game is the fact that you're responsible for calling the offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your team, but your season as well. It'll also shape the future of your program. It is completely free. It has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. You can even play it on the go no matter where you are, no matter what you do. Download the app today and just visit ultimate-cfb.com. That is ultimate-cfb.com. Or look it up on your app stores, Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching personal legacy today with Ultimate College Football HC. Download it today and start playing the game. All right, Justin, now we get to some legitimate bold takes that don't have to do with QR codes. And I wanted to kind of start this thing off here with some of the things that I had mentioned last season, bold takes, right? Because there were several things that I didn't get right. Well, one of the things that we had mentioned was we'd get to 10 wins, make it to Arlington. That was fun. 1,500-yard rusher. Thank you, Ollie Gordon. 1,000-yard wide receiver. We would have had if somebody went to the school for kids who can't count good up top, and Brendan Presley got that extra 9 yards. So technically, we didn't get it. All right, we got robbed there. I thought we'd lead the Big 12 in sacks. We ended up being number 4. We did lead in forced fumbles and fumble recoveries, but I can't admit that I called that right. It is what it is. I thought that Josiah Johnson would be able to surpass Blake Jarwin's top year, which did not happen. He did have a good productive year, but he didn't quite get to that level. I predicted 3 All-Americans. We only had 2, 5 All Big 12 members. We ended up with 6, so I guess that was pretty fun there. We beat OU, of course. I had Justin Kirkland making the All Big 12 team. That didn't happen. I had Leon Johnson as the newcomer of the year. That was pretty close to happening. You get the point, right? So this year, I wanted to start it off with, we will have 2 1,000-yard wide receivers. Being a wide receiver with a Big 12 title ring, what say you, sir?
Well, you have to go back, I think, to 2017, which is, I'm pretty sure, the only time in school history that we have had 2 1,000-yard receivers, when James Washington and Marcel Aitman were able to do that. And last year, of course, Brendan Presley, 991, Rashad Owens, 895. So it's logical to think that if they improve on that, they can absolutely be 2 1,000-yard receivers. And I really want to say yes to that. But when you're bringing Stribling in the mix, and if he's staying healthy, he's taking some of those yards, he's taking some of those targets, that balances out a little bit. I don't know that that's actually going to happen. Now, if you look back again to that 2017 season, Washington, Aitman, they averaged about 20 yards per catch. If you compare that to 2023, Presley averaged 9.8 and Owens 14.2. So they're going to have to be a little bit more explosive for that to happen. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's really a matter of if the offense can rise to a similar level as what we saw in 2017. Can Bowman be more like Mason Rudolph? I probably not, right?
Okay,
but it is possible. I feel like if all 3 receivers do stay healthy, that it's maybe not going to happen for 2 1,000-yard receivers, but that is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I completely get it. What I will say is the reason I think that we will, and we're not even talking about the fact that AyoShotomide-King and Talon Shetron are going to be heavily involved in getting some receptions as well. But more than anything, it's going to be the offensive line, number 1. Number 2, the fact that Alan Bowman not only understands this system, but the incorporation he was able to bring last year with the option route concepts. Everybody understands them now, not just Alan Bowman. So there's going to be a lot more continuity in the route trees. And then realistically, most teams are going to be loading the box to try to stop Ollie Gordon or Trent Howland. Therefore, we're going to be isolated man-to-man on the outside more often than not, which is why I think the offense could look very similar to 2017. Run the ball, take a deep shot. Run the ball, take a deep shot. I feel like that's going to be kind of the secret to the success this season. So even though we're going to have receivers take some of those grabs, those are the reasons I think it should happen. And finally, we're going to be playing more games, man. Big 12 title, CFP, that's more opportunities. Yeah.
He's got a point.
Huh?
He's got a
Huh?
point, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go. All right, another bold take I wanted to run by you. So I don't think we're going to rush for 3,055 yards like we did with Chuba and Spencer Sanders and LD Brown. I don't think that's going to happen. So 3,000 yards is a bit much, but I do think that we are going to rush for over 2,500 yards. What say you?
Okay. I mean, I do want to point out 2,500 yards. It kind of is a ridiculous number if you think about it. But how great is it? I just have to bring this up. Barry Sanders had 2,850 rushing yards in 12 games, But really, I mean, this summer I've been diving a little bit deeper into all these rushing stats from last year. Found a couple of interesting things. Number one, his total rushing yards gained was 1,776. So go America. Okay. And then too, if you take his average from games 4 through 14, it's about 147 yards. So if you apply that average to weeks 1 through 3, as if he were playing as the guy the whole season, he ends up with a little over 2,100 yards, maybe 2,200 yards. And I firmly believe Ollie can surpass 2,000 yards this season, maybe even closer to that 2,400 yard mark, because if you eliminate performances like the UCF game and the Texas game, and he's more consistent with what he had done throughout the majority of the season, that's an attainable goal. And realistically, from what we've seen, you factor in the O-line health and the balance of the offense to keep the defenses guessing as far as what you were just mentioning. You pick your poison. So if they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit more and they have to adjust, Ollie can also break those long gains. So for me, it's a matter of who else can rack up the additional yardage behind Ollie Gordon. We've had the luxury of that being Spencer Sanders in the past, rushing quarterback. If Ollie maxes out, it's absolutely possible. I think 2,500 yards is absolutely attainable.
Well, and again, if we were talking about like an 11, 12 game schedule, I don't know that I would be willing to go this bold. But again, I'm making these predictions predicated upon us playing in the CFP, right? So if we get all those games, I do see some of this coming fruition. Here's another one that I'm back and forth on. I don't know that it's going to happen. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that we have another Blake Jarwin 300-yard tight end this season or next season? Or do you think that it might be a little bit of time still yet before tight ends integral in the route tree? Because last year it was not, right? You can count double-digit times how often Josiah Johnson was standing by the sidelines wide open, okay? But that's because he wasn't part of the route tree as one of the mainstays. Do you think that changes this year?
I haven't even really researched our tight ends because we were doing our preview pod on the offense positions. I almost forgot about the tight ends because I just won't believe it until I see it, kind of thing. I have no idea why tight ends are not utilized more in this offense. Gundy loves balance as far as the run game, the pass game, but when it comes to the passing game, it seems like we've just got so many weapons on the outside and in the slot. I think the tight ends have the potential to be dangerous with a play action or a pop pass or even tight end screen passes. We love screens. Why not one for the tight end to take advantage of a hard charging defensive end? So I'm surprised that hasn't been incorporated in our offense, but for whatever reason we haven't seen it. It seems like the 300-yard mark, it should be easy money, but apparently the days of Alonzo Mays, Brandon Pettigrew, those are gone for Oklahoma State, right? We leave it to the teams like Notre Dame, Iowa, Georgia, and honestly, South Dakota State is on the rise. I don't know if you know this, but South Dakota State has 10 tight ends on their roster. All right. They want to follow the guys like Dallas Goedert, Tucker Kraft, Zach Hines in the NFL, even Mike Morgan, who is an FCS All-American tight end last season. So they've got it figured out with the tight end position. It's helped them in recruiting. I think OSU could absolutely do the same, but for whatever reason, they're not in the mix.
All right, I'm gonna rapid fire some of these, and you tell me, you stop me when Cody went a little bit too crazy. I've got Oklahoma State beating, Utah, West Virginia, K-State to go into Provo, Utah, 6-0. All right.
Yes,
See?
it's possible. It is
I like it.
possible.
All right.
So
Brian Nardo's defense will lead the Big 12 in sacks, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, and third down conversion defense. Yeah, that's 2021 numbers, buddy. I said it.
yeah, I don't know.
I went there.
I'll try to bring it maybe a little bit back down to earth on that one.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that the jump is going to be as big. I think that there will be an improvement, and we have the potential to be even a top 40 defense from the 122 range that we were last year. But to say that we're going to lead, it just depends. I think more on matchups and the way that Oklahoma State's schedule is this season versus what it was last year. I think it was easier last year, and we still struggled. And some of the top offenses that we're going to play, Arkansas is a top 40 offense, probably. Utah, probably top 30. Kansas State might be top 20 to 25. West Virginia may be a top 25. And, we've got a little bit of breathing room kind of in the middle of the schedule after that. But then you go back to TCU, they're a top 30 offense. And I fully expect our offense to overpower all of these defenses. But as far as our defenses to be able to hold that down, I don't necessarily know that I'm quite on board with that yet.
Well, if I'm Georgia player drunk on anything with this Cowboy roster, it is the defense. I'll just make sure that that is stated beforehand. All right, got another one. An Oklahoma State quarterback will throw for over 4,000 yards this season. Last year, Bowman ended up right around 3,100. And again, having more games, I think, does come into play here. But that's a lot of yards for a team that was last season primarily oriented around the running attack. So if 4,000 yards, a little bit too far out of reach for a team that is still going to be running the ball a significant amount, yay or nay?
I think it's possible. The same thing with the Ollie averages in the first 3 games apply to Alan Bowman. If you put that in there, he's going to be at around 4,000 yards. With the defenses focusing more on stopping the run, there's a chance for more explosive plays from our receivers. And I think that that's definitely the case. And even if Bowman goes down, that injury history rears its ugly head again, it sounds like the hype train is real for Rangel or Flores to be able to step in and make it happen as well.
I love it. All right. And to tie a nice little bow on this thing, I'm going to say that this year we're finally going to have the gutsy, all gas, no brakes, curb stomp you while you're laying in your deathbed version of Casey Dunn and Mike Gundy collectively together, meaning that by the end of the year, the Cowboys will tie our highest ever and drafted Cowboys, which is 7 by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I need this more than ever right now. I don't want to keep living in the past, thinking about the days of Holgorsen and Monken as our offensive coordinators, because they had that type of mentality.
Right.
Dunn is, of course, more calm, cool, and collected. And I don't necessarily want to see him get out of his lane. Maybe that's the type of mentality our OC needs to have for this era of athlete. But it's so much more fun for the players and the fans whenever the headman and the OC can get on board and just let it rip. So I'd love to see that. And I do think that being able to put 7 people in the NFL draft is a realistic possibility as well.
I know love it.
Ollie Gordon, we're assuming he's going to go pro, but he's just a junior. He might come back another year in this NIL era. Nick Martin, same thing, redshirt junior, but we're kind of expecting them to be part of that group. So I would say, of course, 7 to the NFL draft is maybe even a safe bet, conservative estimate.
There we go. I knew you'd come around here at the end. All right. So speaking of, we are going to talk about some sleeper surprises and then kind of briefly go over the schedule. Obviously, you know my take on it. We're going to start 6-0. So we'll let you cover the back half here. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, it's always money-making season, and it's always the best time to save money. Whenever you're getting into football mode, your kids are going back to school, which means meals cost a lot more. You're getting prepared to travel to, of course, come check out the Cowboys on their Big 12 title run. Use Ibotta. Whenever you go shopping, you got to get with Ibotta because they're the only place that you can really count on getting not only points back, but actual points that equal cash that you can withdraw. It's summertime, and it's time for you to get the best app in the game to get cash back every single time you shop. You can earn hundreds of items on groceries, beauty supplies, toys. You can beat inflation by using Ibotta. The average Ibotta earner brings in an extra like $256 a year. That's an average that can help you and your kids and whomever throughout the course of the season. You can save on over 2,400 brands, and you can shop at over 1,000 approved retail stores, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, so on and so forth. You get the picture. It is that good. Get hooked up with Ibotta today, right now. Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta. All you got to do is use the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. That is Ibotta, IBOTTA. Get it in the Google app or App Store and use the code LOCKEDONCollege with Ibotta, because you know you gotta. All right, Justin. We're going to switch gears a little bit here, and I'm going to bring up a couple sleepers, a couple surprises, and kind of get your take on it as well. So when it comes to surprises, I think the biggest surprise for me, other than the fact that the depth at the defensive line is significantly better than I thought it would be coming into the season, specifically a dude, have you been hearing the same stuff about AyoShotomide-King? Because Dejon Stribling is a bad mamma jamma. I thought Dejon Stribling was the best wide receiver on our roster last year. Yes, even above Brennan Presley. But to hear that AyoShotomide-King is legitimately battling to some degree with Dejon Stribling, to me, it's mind-blowing, but it just goes to show how good the kid should be.
It's great. It's a testament, I think, to Coach Dunn as the receivers coach to be able to recognize the talent and bring them in and develop these guys. AyoShotomide-King is, 6'4"? How can you not be a great receiver in this offense, And with him transferring in, getting in with the Coach Glass program, that dude is going to be dadgum near unstoppable. And all you really have to worry about is establishing a run game and then having a quarterback that can get him the ball.
Yeah, dude, like 6'4.5", 220, has a 39-inch vertical, like a 10.7 broad jump, and he's Leon Johnson plus 20 pounds. That's basically what he is. So, yeah, you're right. If we got Leon Johnson for a whole nother year of body by glass, that would possibly look like what AyoShotomide-King is. And the fact that Dejon Stribling is still able to hold him off, I think, is a testament to how good Dejon Stribling is. Another big surprise to me has been the emergence of Kendall Daniel, or at least the news of his move to linebacker. And I mentioned this on yesterday's show, or maybe a couple days ago. There was multiple publications that had Oklahoma State as one of the top 5 linebacker corps in America, right? But that was Nick Martin, Colin Oliver, and Justin Wright. I think Justin Wright is that the Dan Campbell, chew your kneecaps off epitome of what you want as a linebacker. But Kendall Daniels athletically can do things that nobody else on the field can, which is why he was a freshman All-American. And even then, as a freshman, you saw the glimpses. Like, he would do some absolutely crazy stuff, but he'd also make a lot of mistakes. Well, but he made the mistakes at 130,000 miles an hour, so even the mistakes were pretty cool. Last year, it was a lot of thinking for him. It was a lot of dissemination of information as opposed to just pinning his ears back and playing the game. Him being closer to the box and being able to just play the game. If he can guess the right gaps, dude, I don't see the Big 12 running on our defense a lot. And you're talking Taj Brooks, RJ Harvey, Devin Neal, Corey Kiner over at Cincinnati. You've got 5, 6, 7,000 yard rushers in this league. And I don't think any of them eat up Oklahoma State because of this linebacker core and this D-line.
I mean, I'm fired up for it. I feel like this is what we were really wanting to see Nardo make an adjustment for, having Colin Oliver back on the edge, still kind of in that linebacker group, and then to have Kendall Daniels shift down a little bit more into that linebacker group. And then what do you got? Nick Martin on top of that, Justin Wright backing up. We legitimately might have the best linebacker group in the country because of that. And of course, Nick Martin, this is what you love about him. He's the guy that is running around 100 miles an hour and just laying his body on the line. Coach has talked about that. He's been playing through an injury almost all of last year. So if he's fully healthy again, imagine how much better he's going to be. And then you have, of course, Kendall Daniels filling that role as more of a hybrid. This is where I'm excited about it, because we're talking about Nardo adjusting his 3-3-5 defense to fit the strengths of the players on the roster. And I don't think Big 12 teams are ready for it. I don't think that the offenses are ready for a non-traditional approach to what we're going to see. Two basically hybrid type of players. You got to account for where they're going to be on the field just because of one, who they are and the caliber of athlete they are. But two, you don't know what they're going to do, how they might disguise different looks, how they might send Daniels on a blitz. They might drop him in coverage. He's dynamic enough to make that happen. That is going to wreak havoc on some of these offenses with less experienced quarterbacks. We don't necessarily have, I would say, the most experienced quarterbacks in the Big 12 like we've seen in the past, where they might be able to diagnose that on the run. You can look at game film. Everything's going to be a little bit different this year. And I think that Nardo can play to the advantage where they're put in that position for that.
Dude,
so I'm excited about
Daniels, he's still listed as a safety. He can still play safety. So you're right. As a quarterback, if you're looking at keys, whether it be a defensive end, if you're an RPO, looking at the linebacker, looking up to the free safety, whatever keys you're looking at, if our free safety, by the time you snap the ball, is at the line of scrimmage and a linebacker like Kendall Daniels is back there, playing safety, who are you going to key off of? Right. And then if you've got a 4-man front or a 3-man front, but you've got Colin Oliver creeping up or Obi Ezegbo creeping up, but maybe bailing into coverage as a quarterback, who are you going to read off of? Right. The interchangeability between somebody like Cam Epps, plays corner, plays safety. Kendall Daniels plays safety, plays linebacker. Lyric Rawls, he can play free safety. He can play strong safety. He can even play linebacker if you absolutely needed him to. This versatility, we're going to be able to rotate pre-snap, post-snap, during snap, and just completely screw with other teams' quarterbacks, which is again why I made those statements about the defensive statistics looking somewhat like 2021. I'm head over heels, hammered, white girl, wasted, drunk on how good this defense is going to be. So I'll ask you another question, and then I'll ask you for maybe a sleeper or a surprise. The backup slot receiver battle, it may be the best of every position on the field, between Gavin Freeman and DeJuan Lofton, right? And this is BP even pulling himself sometimes out of things to let them run some ones just so they can see different looks. And BP can explain to them, here's what I'm looking at when this defender does X, Y, or Z. Being somebody that played wide receiver at Oklahoma State and being in some position battles, what are you looking for as the guy to come in right after Brennan Presley, or who do you want to line up next to Presley in the 4-wide, 5-wide situation?
I really do believe it's just a matter of playing to strengths, and I don't know who the backup is going to be. Based on some of the stuff I've seen statistic wise from Gavin Freeman, it looks like he could be that guy to step in and play in that position and do a great job. I also think that we are underutilizing certain positions and formations where you could have, take the slot out of it and get more in the diamond formation and have bigger guys on the outside and play to the strengths of your running back. Especially if you're going to have 8 guys loading the box, you don't necessarily want a Presley or Freeman in that situation every time, laying a block on a safety or a linebacker. Mix it up and get the bigger guys back there, get your backup running backs, get in an extra tight end and put some bodies on them to where you can legitimately spring Ollie Gordon loose, even whenever you do have 8 or 9 guys in the box. So for that reason, I don't necessarily know that we're going to see a ton of either one of these backups in the slot position. I mean, unless God forbid Brennan Presley goes down with an injury. And I just think that that's more of the conservative nature that we're going to maybe see out of Dunn and Gundy. With you get up by a couple of touchdowns, let's start running the ball, let's start ground and pound, let's run the clock down. Got the 2-minute drill factoring into it now, slow the game down a little bit. So I love that they're on the roster, that they're grinding, they're working, they have the opportunity to come in and make plays and make stuff happen. I just don't know that we're going to see that much of them, and that's not a bad thing.
Dude, if I'm telling you now, if Casey Dunn doesn't run some iterations of 4-wide occasionally sprinkled into games, I might go throat punch the next OU fan that looks like Paul Finebaum. All right. Give me my guy. Is there a sleeper or a surprise that you've kind of seen or heard about thus far through fall and spring camp that you think is worth mention?
I think we kind of already talked about it with AyoShotomide-King as far as the receiver. I love to look at receivers.
Yeah.
I would say we all know about Corey Black being that guy at corner, and guys just aren't throwing his way. I think that if there's a
There you
surprise,
go.
it might be that he is going to ramp up his draft stock a little bit. His statistics don't look great because guys aren't throwing his way. But I think if you can mix it up, get some pressure on the quarterback more than we had last year, it's going to lead to more turnovers. And I think that Corey Black will be a part of that. So he's kind of maybe not a big surprise because we already know he's the guy, but I think that his statistics will improve. His draft stock will improve because of the improved play from the D line and getting pressure on the quarterback.
That's a big one.
On the other side of the other corner, Cale Smith, they could be a surprise. We're missing DJ McKinney going to Colorado, but they can step up and actually be the guy, because how often do we see it whenever you see a corner move on from Oklahoma State and then the next guy comes right back in? You're like, well, where did this guy come from?
Well, and we also have Kenneth Harris, the Arkansas State transfer, who put up very impressive numbers before coming to Oklahoma State, who now has a full year of glass under his belt.
Absolutely,
all right, buddy.
Yeah.
Before I let you off the hook and let you skedaddle on off of here, so obviously my stance, right? We're going to start the season 6-0. Whenever you are talking about the back half of the season, or is there part of that front half of the season that is concerning to you? Because we're not gonna. Here's my thing: is I don't think we're gonna underestimate South Dakota State or Arkansas or Tulsa, because we have like 36 seniors and 16 juniors. The leadership in the locker room, the upperclassmen, I think is the thing that is going to allow us to focus on not having a bunch of distractions. There's been other years that we've been really good. There's been other massively anticipatory seasons previously, but none of them this senior loaded. So I don't see us, overlooking anybody this season. So whether it's the front half or the back half of the schedule, what do you think is most concerning for you?
Well, it's a two-part answer, I guess. So the front half, you do have it's front loaded, it's heavy loaded in the front.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we get 2 of those games in Boone Pickens Stadium. That's going to play to our advantage. But when I look at these games, I try not to take them for face value and say, okay, win. There's a lot of preparation that goes into each game, the strategy of exploiting different matchups, playing to your strengths, trying to limit your weaknesses. And then you've got the other side. They're doing the same thing. They're trying to take advantage of our weaknesses. There's another factor in here where you look at the games leading up to each matchup, right? Utah has a very easy schedule heading into our week 4 matchup. There's a chance that Baylor gives them a tough look, but we're not really expecting that. We've seen that they just flat out have an easier non-conference schedule, and they should be pretty fresh heading into Stillwater. Kansas State, they have a tougher schedule. They play Tulane, Arizona, and BYU before hosting us, and we all know Manhattan can be tough, but there's a chance K-State is hobbling into that late September game with the Pokes. And then West Virginia, they start off with Penn State, they play Pitt, Kansas. There's a chance they could go off and be undefeated heading into that game. That could be a wild game in Stillwater. So they're a little bit of a wild card for me right now, sitting here in the preseason talking about, you get past Utah, Kansas State, it would be hard not to say we're absolutely going to beat West Virginia. But, you take a look at that BYU game in Provo Friday night. OSU is coming off a bye, while BYU is coming off a game against 21st ranked Arizona just 6 days before. So we haven't, it's advantageous to us to be able to prep for an additional week against the Cougars. But, it's of course one game at a time. We're looking at the rest of the schedule. The biggest one for me, this is that part 2 question I'm talking about. Sneaky good, TCU. I don't know. They're a bit of a wild card because just 2 seasons ago, they were playing in the national championship and they just completely dropped off last year. But did they not benefit in recruiting from being in the national championship, being in the playoff and beating Michigan? Those guys have had a year in the program. And we have kind of historically struggled going into Dallas-Fort Worth area and playing games. So that one is a little bit of a blinking red light on the radar for me. But I say if you're undefeated heading into that game, you don't have any time to mess around. You got to take care of business. And I understand going undefeated in today's college football world is a very difficult task. But when you're looking at the rest of the Big 12, you really do have to win those games because teams like Kansas State, Kansas, I think UCF, they benefit from easy schedules where they might come up on top and you just can't screw around and lose any games. So
fair play. So my heart, the analytics, the film, the statistics, everything that I can find tells me that this is an 11-1 regular season ball club, right? But deep down in my soul, there's that, well, what game are we going to screw up that we shouldn't, right? What game are we going to UCF or Iowa State ourselves on? But yeah, I'm just going to say it. We're going to end this on a bold take. Again, this is the year that Casey Dunn doesn't trip and get it in his own daggone way. So I'm going to say 11-1 regular season, head into Arlington and making a CFP playoff appearance. Where are you at, Justin? You 11-1, 10-2, 9-3. Holler at me, Goose.
I love it. I think I have already said 10-2, so I guess I've got to stick with that. So more than likely, I would hate for this to happen, but you just lose to the two purple teams, going to Kansas just on the road, just because I feel like Boone Pickens Stadium, the atmosphere is just incredible. You really got to not care to lose a game there. And then, yeah, just it's a matter of if we're road warriors or not. And it's hard just to say, oh, we're going to go undefeated. I would love to see it happen. I think we absolutely could. But realistically, if you're going to, gun to head, you got to pick a legitimate record for this team. I'm going to say 10-2. Now, how does that look like, matching up in the Big 12 championship game in Arlington? Who knows? We're struggling. We're struggling down in DFW. So it's that's a little bit of a coin toss. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves right now, but man, it would almost be this scenario is kind of crazy to think about, but let's entertain it for a second. You go undefeated in the regular season. For whatever reason, you lose in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
But you'd still be at a top 8 team, hypothetically, going into the playoff. You get a first round game in Boone Pickens Stadium and you can win that playoff game. I feel like in the future, recruits are actually going to start looking more at not necessarily how many conference championships do you have. I think it will start being like, how many playoff games have you won? And is there a chance that we could play a playoff game here and win that game?
Yep.
Part of me, it goes back and forth. It's an internal battle for me because I'm like, I want to win everything, of course. But if you had to choose, do you want a Big 12 championship or do you want a playoff win? I think you would want a playoff win.
I mean, I want a Big 12 title game, but yeah, no, I think you're right. I think anybody that walks into the Big 12 title game 11-1 is likely going to the CFP even if they lose.
Sure. And it's just a matter at that point, if you lose at 11-1, are you going to be 9-12 and not get a home field advantage game? Because that is a likely possibility as well. OSU loves to be in that bubble situation and then not get the benefit of the doubt because of the national media talking about the SEC, the Big Ten. Let's put them in over Oklahoma State, even if they have more losses.
Yeah, dude,
based on the schedule.
I've been hooting and hollering 10-2 for a few months now, but I had this epiphany yesterday. All right. Was if we're doing a bold take show,
got to be a little bold, huh?
Yeah, dude. 10-2 just feels too safe. And I have to stand on business. I've been saying this is the deepest 3 deep in Oklahoma State history. Like you can go back to 84, 45. I don't give a hoot. I don't think there's ever been a time we've gone 3 deep at literally every position. So if that's true and we have some injuries, according to Cody Stovall, we should still keep winning even with the injuries. I believe that. So I'm gonna say 11-1.
I mean, like I said, last year's schedule was easier. We could have been in that position had we not messed around in the I'm calling it a preseason because that's the way we treated it, in the non-conference, where you have Alan Bowman as the guy, Ollie Gordon as the guy from the beginning. You establish an identity early, and then you're not losing to South Alabama. You're not losing at Iowa State. You're winning those games. You're going all the way undefeated until, the Bedlam hangover. Of course, you're playing in the monsoon at UCF in the space game.
Yeah.
That looks like a loss no matter what at this point because of how much they just handed it to us. And you got to give them credit for that. But realistically, you go through the rest of the season and you're sitting there with one loss going into the Big 12 championship game against Texas. It might be a little bit of a different outcome. I don't know how the mindset is going into that game, how the bodies hold up with that mindset. And maybe you give Texas a little bit more of a run for their money.
I love it. Buddy, thank you very, very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And before we beat the brakes off of Utah in Boone Pickens Stadium, we do have to get past South Dakota State University. So why don't you let the fine folks out here know that you got something cooking in that department that we all need to catch and set our notifications to.
Absolutely appreciate it. Of course, I say it all the time. Anything is possible for the one who believes. You check out the Bleav in OK State podcast, where two former Oklahoma State receivers give their unique perspectives and insights into the Oklahoma State football program. And next week, we are set to begin season 3, and we're going to have a guest on from the South Dakota State football world. Be sure to check it out. Cody, thanks again for having me on.
Oh, anytime, dude. You're my guy. And yeah, I love watching your show because y'all are the exact opposite of me, right? I like to get loud. I like to raise the decibel level occasionally. It's just how I live my life. I don't know why. But your buddy Nathan, phenomenal stuff, by the way. But he talks like this, very calm, very chill. So if you're trying to get woken up at 6:30 in the morning, maybe click on my show. If you're trying to chill and relax, maybe click on Bleav in OK State, because Justin and Nathan have y'all covered. I greatly appreciate your time, brother, man. Thank you much.
That's what we got to do, man. We got to supplement each other. All the Oklahoma State podcasts out there, there's some great stuff, right? You got Pistols Firing. You got the Old Poke Show. You got Feels Like 45. You got Locked On OK State. You got Bleav in OK State. You've got everything you need all throughout the week. We all got different takes. It's all good stuff. So I just love that we supplement each other in that way.
We just need to keep it going too, man, because I feel like our fan base, especially with the Pac-12 no longer being a thing, there's going to be people out there, right, that are looking for teams to cheer on. And most everybody hates the Big Ten and the SEC if you're not in the Big Ten and the SEC, right? So naturally, teams are going to have to gravitate towards cheering on some Big 12 schools. Oklahoma State should be the Big 12 school that everybody in the country gravitates towards and talks to. So if you're going to have a second favorite team, it should be Oklahoma State. And I think this is the season we see it. But yeah, you're right. All of us in the podcast and journalistic media style corners, we need to push all of this stuff out as much nationally as possible to grow this fan base, because I think we've just scratched the surface, brother.
Amen.
All righty, my dude. I appreciate you. I can't wait to, we'll definitely do this again. And if you ever need anything, you can always give me a holler. Everybody, Justin Southwell, Cowboy wide receiver, Bleav in OK State podcast. Make sure you go check it out. In the meantime, I reckon that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't, because that's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast of people out there. You're the bricks, the butter, the foundation, the fondue. Call it what you want to call it. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. Appreciate you. All righty. Later, my taters.